If you take a picture of Joel, here's Joel Rene Valdez. He's in jail on the satellite from Del Valle, Texas, not far from Austin, where last month he is accused of breaking into a woman's apartment. He was intoxicated. He got a knife from the kitchen table. She heard the dog bark. He confronted her. She locked herself in the bathroom, was calling 911. He knocked the door down, and in the moments before the rape was about to occur, this panicked woman insisted that he put on a condom. She put it on him. After which the sex act followed, and a grand jury refused to indict him for rape because she told him to wear a condom. Therefore, she must have consented. Joel Rene Valdez, what happened? You don't deny you were drunk, do you?
No.
And you walked, yes, was the woman's door open or did you break it in?
No, it was, she had a patio door, a sliding door, wide open, and I just walked in there.
Did you hear the dog bark?
No, the dog was outside.
And then tell us what happened.
Well, I was drunk. I think it was by around 3 o'clock, or 2:45, something like that.
In the morning?
In the morning. And I seen, I was just walking around and I seen, the sliding door was lights on. So, I opened that gate, walked in there. And I say hello, I answer hello, nobody answered, so I walked in. I was in their house about 15 minutes. I walked, looked around, nothing, I went upstairs, nobody was there, so I came back downstairs, looked around. And then I went to the downstairs restroom, started throwing up. So, I heard a noise, right? And I walked, and when I heard that noise, when I came out of the restroom, I heard a noise upstairs. I just came from upstairs. I just looked around her house, and I picked up the knife in her house. And I went back up upstairs, where she was, when I heard the noise. And I freaked out myself, because, I heard that dog upstairs. I said to myself, how can a dog be inside the house when I seen him outside? The door was closed and the gate was closed. And then I freaked out, I seen her, I seen a dog in the room with her. And I just came up from there. I freaked out because I seen her, in there naked. And then I just walked, she started screaming, the dog started barking, I panicked, I got scared myself. So, I panicked and she panicked, and then the dog started barking. I told her to, tell that dog calm down. So she told the dog to calm down. And then she told me that don't hurt her, He said, don't hurt me, I told her, I ain't gonna hurt you, just tell the dog calm down. So she told me that she wanted to go to the restroom. So she went to the restroom, she had the door open. And then when she came out of the restroom, she told me that, just don't hurt me. I told her, I ain't gonna hurt you. Well, she told me to put the knife down. I freaked out, I still had the knife in my hand, so what I did, I put the knife down where she told me to. When I put that knife down, and then she told me that, do me a favor. I told her, I said, what's that? Well, you put on a condom. Because nowadays everybody got disease and AIDS. I said, whatever, I went for it. So she sat down in the bed. She took my pants off. She put on the condom. So we started making love,
You are here, Mr. Valdez, you are on the satellite, and here in our studios, attorney at law Malcolm Nettles, who represents Joel Rene Valdez. Let's be clear here. A grand jury, considering the evidence presented to it by an assistant prosecutor regarding this case, no other witnesses, no testimony from the victim, a grand jury of 7 women and 4 men, after reviewing the case and the information handed to it by the prosecutorial bureaucracy in Austin, obviously said to itself, she insisted he wore a condom, he accommodated her request, therefore she must have consented, therefore this isn't rape. Comes down now from the mountain all kinds of outrage, which we are already seeing in this audience, from women and men who want to know why, if a woman is going to protect herself from death, she should be accused of consenting to the sex act. I really can't. From the New York Times account of this, Mr. Valdez, the attorney at law representing the victim is quoted as saying, "My client locked herself in the bathroom and started calling 911. Valdez broke down the door, knocked the phone out of her hand, assaulted her with the knife, and ordered her to take his pants off. She thought he was going to kill her."
No. It didn't happen like that. When she came out of the restroom, you know, she said that I hear myself talking.
That's all right. Just ignore the echo and go ahead.
She said that she didn't, you know, when I walked, she didn't shut that door, you know. She said I broke that door. You know, I didn't break no door. She had the dog right there. When she was trying to shut the door, the dog got in the way. And when she came out, you know, she didn't have no phone. She didn't have no phone at all. You know, when I walked in, she said that she was trying to shut the door. Maybe she did, but, you know, she had that dog there, but the dog got in the way. So I just got in, you know, and she didn't have no phone. She didn't have no phone in her hand. She didn't have no phone at all.
How much?
I don't think what?
No, go ahead.
She didn't have no phone in her hand. I don't think she had a phone, period.
Yeah. How much did you drink prior to this? Do you know?
Too much.
Yeah. The attorneys for the prosecution want to know how you can remember. When this reality became known to the community of Austin, here is just one of the demonstrations that resulted. Take a look here.
No means no. No means no. No means no. No means no. No means
Here are outraged citizens who gathered.
Stop blaming women. Stop blaming women.
Who gathered in Austin, Texas,
Stop blaming women. Stop blaming women.
following the realization
Stop blaming women.
that a woman who finds a strange man in her bedroom and has the savvy to stay on her pins enough to say, put on a condom, risks prosecution following the event. This audience should know something else. Following the cascade of criticism that fell upon the prosecutor's office in Austin after this case, it was resubmitted to the grand jury, resubmitted, and this man now on the satellite, Joel Rene Valdez, has now been accused of rape and indicted on rape charges and could serve life in prison. Also here, in addition to the attorney, is Lynn Thompson Haas, who is executive director of the Austin Rape Crisis Center in Austin, Texas. You wanted to begin by saying what, Ms. Haas?
Well, first I was going to say that we're only hearing one side of the story, even though from the audience reaction you see that that's a ludicrous story. I mean, it'd be very hard to go from an attacker breaking into your house and confronting you at knife point to consensual sex. I think the terror that anyone would feel at that point would make it impossible to go within a few minutes to consensual sex.
Right.
But I think also what's going on, when you hear one person speaking, that you need to be educated about that. And I think this was a problem with the grand jury, that they didn't know anything about rape or rapist. And power rapists, there are 3 types of rapists according to the FBI, and power rapists really fantasize and believe that the rape victim enjoyed it. So what he's saying right now might be what he really believes. It's common for rapists to leave their calling cards afterwards or tell a victim if they're, call me if you want to have a good time again. I mean, rapists do these sorts of things. So just because he's saying this doesn't mean it's true. We're not hearing the other side today. But I guess the reason I'm here is because I'm really concerned that in 1992 that this could happen, that a grand jury could say there isn't enough evidence. And in fact, there were witnesses. From what I've heard, Mr. Valdez told a friend of his that he got drunk and raped a woman, and the police have that statement. And they also have people who saw her running nude from the house screaming with the knife that she had gotten from him.
Which in fact she did.
Right.
She ran nude to a neighbor after he made his
When he put the knife down, she ran, from what I read in the paper, she was able to get away. And so this was a case where there was so much evidence and the grand jury could still not indict it. And that concerns me as someone who's been doing this work for a long time, that we haven't made enough changes in society to make it so that people understand sexual assault and believe women. We're still blaming the victims.
Yeah, let's try now. Neither of us were there, but let me just say that, first of all, it's hard to imagine your heart continuing to beat after you see this strange figure in your own bedroom when you're a woman, smaller in stature, with no power at all, alone, and here is this guy with a knife. It is certainly conceivable, it's believable that a woman would have the courage and the savvy to stay enough on her feet, and he has, by his own testimony, said she screamed, so she responded in a very normal way. But then when the reality set in, this woman is not only about to face the worst violation imaginable, but it could mean her death. Does the man have AIDS? And so it's believable that she would say, you have to wear a condom, wear a condom. Well, you know, I'll save my life here and try to pull myself together emotionally later. This is a believable scenario.
It's no different than when a woman says, please don't hurt my children who are in the next room, or please don't kill me, or please, I'll do whatever you say, just don't hurt me. You know, a lot of women, when they're, or men, when they're confronted with attackers, their survival instinct kicks in, and they do things to protect ourselves, and we shouldn't hold that against them. And this woman, you'll hear later from another woman who had the presence of mind to do that. And we've had that, lots of women calling in saying, I've had similar situations happen to me.
Mr. Nettles, you do get to speak, sir, and I thank you for your patience. Give me just a moment. Are you there, caller? Caller?
Yes.
You wanted to say.
Same thing happened to me, except I was in a department store, and I got caught shoplifting, and the security officer holded me for 2 hours in the room, told me that I would not be able to leave until I would give him something. And finally, after 2 hours, I figured out he wanted sex, and so he said that unless I give him sex, he would put me in jail, and I would have to stay in there for 2 nights until my mother or my parents come pick me up. And so after I saw what he wanted, I had just turned 16. I agreed to it, and I said, well, I'm not going to consent unless, you put on a condom. So he put on a condom, but that doesn't mean I wanted it. I was just trying to protect my own self,
And you got away? You weren't charged with shoplifting, and have you told anybody about this?
Yes, I told my mother, and the case went to court. And 4 years later, I just won a trial.
You won?
Yes.
He was found guilty?
Yes.
And we'll be back in just a moment. Attorney at law Malcolm Nettles represents the accused rapist, who's also in on a charge of B&E, I assume. He entered somebody else's apartment. Joel Rene Valdez, who's on the satellite from Texas. Mr. Nettles, sir, in the face of this outraged studio audience of mostly women, you would wish to say what now on behalf of your client?
I have really two concerns in this case. And the first of those concerns is that my client, basically, you've heard his story, you've heard what he has to say. He gave a statement to the police that's essentially in conformity with his story, that was presented to a grand jury that no-billed for whatever reason that they did. Once they no-billed, then the public spotlight came on this case.
Not finding evidence for a trial, not finding evidence for a grand jury charge.
The grand jury deals strictly with probable cause. That means, is it more likely than not that an offense of aggravated sexual assault occurred? And they said not even 51%. It wasn't more likely than not, based on the evidence that they reviewed.
Which has been considerably criticized by the legal community and others. Did the prosecutor's office act conscientiously in its presentation of the evidence? Why, for example, did not the grand jury get to hear the testimony in chambers, in private, of the victim? You know, I don't mean to suggest that I know what happened, but we have here the very real possibility of an overworked, undermanned prosecutor's office walking into a grand jury room and saying, here, read this, tell us what you think.
That's
Boom.
a possibility.
That's the end of that. And you've got some tired grand jurors who, you know, dinner's on the table. I mean, it looks like the whole system did not take this
I used to be an assistant district attorney, and I used to run that grand jury. And this was a grand jury that had been there 3 months. This was the end of their term. And I had a good enough relationship with the foreman that when he said, we're thinking about no bill in this case, he'd give it back to me, and I'd say, what's wrong with this case? What is it that you don't see? We need an aggressive prosecutor who represents victims in this kind of a situation.
And you wonder yourself whether we had one here.
I wonder myself whether we did have one or not.
And in the face of that wonder, you still think that your client is being railroaded, falsely accused?
I don't think my client's being falsely accused of anything. The problem that I have in this case is that because of the media speculation, the media spotlight, that my client has gone from a case where if he had been indicted, it would have been treated in the usual course of things, and
because of the snafu, now he's going to get it worse.
He's looking at life now because of this.
He's looking at life. In other words, life wouldn't obtain if the grand jury had come down with
Not in Texas. No, the average rapist that gets convicted in Texas and spends any time in jail spends 5.4 months in jail.
But understand the range of punishment in this case is from 5 years probation to life imprisonment. Somewhere in there is where the punishment is. And because of the media hype and because of the spotlight,
everybody's got the noose and they're ready to get your client.
That's correct.
There's been an infuriating, incendiary atmosphere created because of what may have been cavalier treatment of the case by the prosecutor's office, and you don't want your client punished because of that.
That's correct.
Let me just let me understand, Mr. Nettles, what it is you're conceding. You concede your client was intoxicated when he entered this woman's apartment.
Yes, sir.
Do you happen to know what he consumed? Was there a blood test?
There's no blood test, but I have a witness that he consumed 12 beers between midnight and 3 p.m. at that person's house, 16-ounce Busch beers.
Right.
Was intoxicated.
You concede that this was the domicile of a woman totally strange to your client. They didn't know each other.
This is a fourplex. They lived on opposite sides of the fourplex. He had seen her before. They weren't friends.
Yeah,
So,
she knew me, and I knew her.
but merely to say hello in the hallway.
No, before that.
Well,
You know.
all right, but this is hardly a friendship. You had no friendship with her.
We live in that neighborhood, you know. We should know each other.
Well, you acknowledge, Mr. Nettles, that your client retrieved a butcher knife from the kitchen of the victim's apartment.
No, I do not. My client, when he heard that dog, picked up a knife off of a table that was there. It's been described to me as being a steak knife and not being a large knife, but it was a knife when he went to the top of the stairs. It's not a butcher knife from the kitchen. And that's the problem in this case. Because of the media, the story gets inflated every time it gets told.
Steak knives become butcher knives. You also, if I'm understanding you, Mr. Nettles, are denying that your client held a knife to the victim's throat.
No, I didn't do nothing like that.
I don't have to, he does.
And you're saying you put the knife down.
No, see, no, nothing like that happened. Nothing like that.
Did you carry the knife upstairs, Mr. Valdez?
That was it.
You carried it upstairs.
That was my mistake.
So when you confronted this, when you confronted the victim, you were holding the knife in your hand. True.
Yes.
True.
Right. Yes, I did. But I didn't, well, like she told me the first time, she told me put it down. I put it down, and after that, I never picked it up, picked it back up. And I didn't force her to do nothing. She the one herself told me to do this and do that. To me, it looked like she wanted to have sex with me, not me to her,
Right.
She's the one.
This young woman wants to ask a question.
Do you have children?
I have two children.
I wasn't talking to you.
Yes, go ahead.
If your daughter was in this situation, you'd still be on the rapist's side?
I'm not on anybody's side. I'm an advocate for my client, and that the facts get presented to a jury and he can receive, either he's going to be convicted or he's not going to be convicted, he's going to receive a fair sentence. I could not be an advocate. I would not feel the same in a trial with my daughter, with either one of my daughters. There's no way I would be able to separate myself from it where it was a family member.
Please.
Yeah, I want to ask him. What's his name?
Valdez, Mr. Valdez.
You said you know her and she knows you?
No, this is going to be disputed. We're not going to solve this here. They shared a multiple dwelling apartment complex in which each lived across the hall from each other. I think we have to say on behalf of the victim that there was no friendship or any kind of familiar knowledge, it is her claim, between the two.
He said that he knew her. So that makes it okay to do what he did to her? I don't get it.
Yes, you wanted to say.
I'm just wondering, was your client tested for AIDS?
Have you been tested for AIDS, Mr. Valdez?
Not to my knowledge.
You cannot request testing for AIDS until an indictment has occurred. So originally, the victim could not request it. Now that the indictment has happened, she will be able to request that.
Yes.
Yeah, I was wondering what Mr. Valdez's intention was.
What was your intention, Mr. Valdez?
I was hoping for her, to, she have any AIDS. Maybe she was trying to protect her, because...
What was your intention in entering the apartment, Mr. Valdez?
I can't, what's that?
What was your intention in entering her apartment?
What?
Why did you go into her apartment?
I don't know. I was just around, I was just walking around when I seen the sliding door open. I thought she was there. I was just, her light was on, the sliding door was open, and I said hello, nobody answered, so I just walked in, made myself at home.
I'm also wondering, does Mr. Valdez have any previous record of any...
Does Mr. Valdez have a previous record?
He has a previous public intoxication charge several years ago. That's his only previous criminal record.
And we'll be back in a moment.
To be part of the audience, please send a postcard to Donahue Tickets, care of NBC, 30 Rockefeller Plaza, New York, 10112. Remember, postcards only, please.
Ms. Haas, you wanted to say?
Well, I think this man will get a fair trial because the evidence will be presented to a jury. But what I'd like to say is it's real unfortunate that the media has to get involved in order for justice to happen. And this case is not unusual. There are cases every day across this country where victims report and the police don't believe them, or that gets all the way to the jury stage and then the judge gives the person probation. We had a case in Travis County where a man raped a retarded young woman, and he was already on probation for raping someone else, and the judge gave him more probation. He never spent any time in jail for either rapes. Things like this happen all the time, but just because they don't make the front page of the paper, people don't get outraged.
Has anyone found out why the door was open at that hour of the morning of her apartment? Was it very hot that night? What?
No, she's
Well,
older.
may I just comment on your question? I know you don't mean to, but you're coming very close to blaming the victim when you ask the question. It's true that I'll assure you, this victim will never leave the door ajar again. Mr. Attorney at Law, Nettles.
I went out to that neighborhood, to that duplex last week, and one of the things that was alarming to me was everybody's door was open in that duplex. Another family has moved into that duplex in her apartment. She moved out the next day. All the doors were open. It's one of those neighborhoods where when I went to visit with his brother, I went to an open door, knocked on the door, said, "Is anyone home?" Walked around to a neighbor. The door was open.
People believe that crime always happens to someone else. Our denial is that it won't happen to us, so we do things like that.
Joel?
What was she doing with, you know, where we live at, they got AC, air conditioning and all that. Why, you know, she knows she won't be back.
So it's her fault for leaving the door open?
Yeah. You know, with see...
Yeah.
You're ready to talk now. All right.
See,
I would like to know, in his own words, he said, "I freaked out when I heard the dog bark." So then why didn't he go back out the door instead of going upstairs with a knife?
I didn't hear her.
Why didn't you run away when you freaked out?
Why? I was inside already, so I just walked upstairs.
Yeah. Are you there, caller?
Hello, Phil?
Yeah.
Yes. That guy on your stage, he's really a creep. It's a sad situation, but I can't help but laugh because his story is so inconsistent. But however, Phil, I think the victim did the right thing as far as having him put on the condom and everything, because this man had a knife at her, and I guess she felt she was using reverse psychology to keep him calm. And if I was in the same situation, I would probably do the same thing to protect my life.
Mm-hmm. And we'll be back in just a moment. If you joined us late, please let me review briefly. Joel Rene Valdez, here shown on the satellite from the Travis County Correctional Complex, where he is imprisoned following a bizarre aftermath of a incident in Austin in which he, intoxicated, at 2:45 in the morning, entered the apartment of a single woman and frightened her upstairs in her bedroom, where he confronted her, as he acknowledges, with what his lawyer says is a steak knife in his hand. She claims to have gone to the bathroom, closed the door, and was about to call 911 when he broke the door down. He denies this. He does acknowledge...
No, I didn't deny that. She didn't have no phone. She didn't have no phone.
All right, but you didn't... You're saying you didn't break the bathroom door down.
How can I break the door?
She insists that he wears a condom, and in the process of his insisting, a grand jury later said she must have consented. Why would she have put on the condom? And outrage ensued. Following a second grand jury hearing, he was indicted for rape and charges that could give him life. May I ask you to give your attention for a moment to Sue, not her real name, who appears in a wig and sunglasses for reasons that no women need to have explained to them. You're a survivor of rape in 1991. You were, this is somewhat similar, you were alone in your apartment, and the assailant entered your apartment at night.
Yes, he did.
And confronted you in your bedroom?
Yes, he did.
And said what?
He didn't say anything. I just opened my eyes. I was sleeping, and of something, I just heard a noise, and I looked up, and he was over me and by my bed, and I said, "Who are you? What are you doing here?" He didn't answer me. I said, "Do you want $200? It's in the drawer," because I was trying to get away. I was trying to go out the... There's two doors. It's a small apartment. I was trying to get out the back door while he went to the drawer to get the money, but he didn't go for that.